Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain and welcome back. Now today I wanted to talk about drunkenness. Why? It seems like a strange thing for someone who doesn't drink to talk about, but mostly because there have been a few conversations that I have had over the last couple of weeks that are kind of pertinent to an article, or not an article, sorry, a study that was published last year that I came across, and I wanted to kind of put it all together because this is one of the videos that I kind of wanted to do as extra from last week when I wasn't around. And so here we go. Ultimately, there are an awful lot of people who will remove responsibility from themselves when it comes to alcohol. Oh, did I do that? Oh, well, I was drunk. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I was drunk. Oh, I cheated on you. Oh, well, I was drunk. I'm sorry. It wasn't really me. I was just full of alcohol. And there was a there was a study done that, and it was published last April 2017, and it was called an experimental investigation of drunk personality using self and observer reports. Now, this isn't the most expansive study. There were only 156 individuals who took part as participants, but it sought to investigate how our personalities change when we are either under the effects of alcohol or when we are completely sober. And as a result, they took all of their participants and they said, right, okay, so you need to fill out what you think you are like when you are sober, what you think you are like when you are drunk, and that was done 2 weeks before they were taken into an experiment environment. Once they were taken into an experimental environment, the participants were given alcohol, and they had trained raters. What that means exactly, I assume, is just other psychologists or people who had been given criteria and certain things to look out for. And they were given 3 personality measures by which to rate the individuals that were drunk. Now, overall, this is where it gets interesting, because the people who were drunk, the people who were the participants, they felt that their drunk and sober personalities would be very much more different, more substantially different than what was then observed by the trained raters. The only thing that did change, notably and consistently, was the level of extroversion, Dutch courage, as it were. But again, whether or not that's something that is purely related to the alcohol, or whether in part that's related to the self-perception, oh well, when I'm drunk it loosens me up and therefore I think I'm going to be more extroverted. Right, so when I actually do drink, even though it doesn't actually necessarily impact that part of me, I'm going to act out more. There are obvious things that affects the take place within the body, hit the brain. It shuts your brain down from front to back. Does alcohol, which is why if you drink too much, as it shuts off that last part of the back where your homeostatic center is, and all of your other kind of autonomic nervous responses are controlled, then that's why you can kind of drink yourself into a coma, pass out, die, and so on. And so as a result, it's something that I wanted to bring back to not necessarily my specific discussions, but the discussions that we see and hear an awful lot. Yeah, people who do stupid shit when they're drunk. Yeah, sometimes it is just because they would do it anyway, but they are now less shy, they are more extroverted, and as a result they are going to actually follow through on the entire thing instead of starting it and then maybe not continuing if it seems like a bad idea, or if it seems like they're going to be judged by other people. But otherwise, if you slept with that person, if you cheated on them, on your significant other with someone else, chances are it's just a pronunciation of what you were going to do anyway. There was another study that was done a long time ago, which I remember reading when I was back in college, which monitored the effects of, I think it was 5 to 6 beers or something like that, relative to what's it called? Sodium pentothal? Truth serum, essentially, and how it effectively generates the same thing, the same responses. Why? Well, because people are just more open to expressing themselves. So under this kind of experiment here, that would be an increase in their extroversion, increase in their communicative functions, that then people, if they ask the right questions, lean on them in the right way, they can get the answers that they want. Again, it's all just a exaggeration of who that person is anyway. There are otherwise no other changes. The biggest differences are how you perceive yourself, but that's because you're the center of your own universe, and you're always going to think that anything that happens to you is going to be far more substantial than what it is. It's that spotlight effect where you walk out in public and you feel like just because you messed up, everybody's watching you. No one's watching you. How often do you notice other people? Because if you don't notice other people, then guess what? No one else is noticing you either. And that's the thing to keep in mind. All of this is in your head. All of this is self-perceived. So when you're drunk, unless you are absolutely paralytic and basically knocking yourself out with alcohol, in which case your personality is going to go from just active to completely passive, the differences that you perceive in yourself are not as substantial as the differences that others perceive in you. And again, it's a case of the only thing that seems to change is how willing you are to act out in front of or around other people, or how willing you are to engage with others, where if you're an introvert you may prefer to step away from that a little bit more, but under the effects of alcohol you are maybe more inclined to act out, to do and say the things you wish to do and say. But again, that the whole point that this boils down to is all of those people that use alcohol, especially, as an excuse, as a way of avoiding blame, bypassing negative consequences. They shouldn't be allowed to do that, because firstly, they're the ones that drank themselves into that situation in the first place, and secondly, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Their personalities only change in terms of what they are willing to show other people directly. In which case, all you're seeing is everything that they would do or say or think otherwise to one degree or another. If you've got someone who is trying to use alcohol consumption as an excuse, don't let them. Yeah, they're responsible for what they put into their body. Unless you've literally watched them get held down and drowned in booze, then they're responsible for what they've put into their own body. They're responsible for their own actions. They're responsible for the consequences that follow afterwards. In which case, that is the way that it should go. Allowing them to avoid it is only ever preventing them from learning from their mistakes or from growing from their experiences. And so by holding them accountable for what they say, what they do, and how they act, even if they're intoxicated, you're doing a bigger favour for them than just letting it slide. There you go, my 2 cents. And as said, I don't drink, so I maybe am not the person who can comment on the experience that of having that difference between my thinking I am one way when I'm sober and one way when I'm drunk. But that's part of the reason I don't drink, because I don't think I'd be a particularly nice drunk. But on top of that, also, why would I drink when I don't need alcohol to have fun? I don't need alcohol to be extroverted, as that's kind of more of my natural state anyway, to one degree or another. And then on top of that, why would I buy alcohol when it's pointlessly expensive? I can quite happily get along on an evening and save money all at the same time. Who'd have thunk? But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys, especially your stories and anecdotes about what you're like when you're drunk. Because chances are, there's probably not a big difference between what you're like when you're drunk and what you're like when you're sober. But again, this didn't have the largest of samples. 156 people, not a substantial number of people for this kind of study, considering how widely accepted alcohol consumption, especially excessive alcohol consumption, is in the world at large. So I'd love to see this kind of experiment done in a much larger capacity. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. How different do you think you are? How often have you used drink as an excuse to kind of bypass things? I'd love to know. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you found this talk interesting or useful, then drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care.